My family mocked my career for years and refused my help, saying my brother could handle everything. Now they've discovered what I really earn and are demanding $100,000 for burdening him. I couldn't help but laugh in their faces. Can you believe the sheer audacity? My own family, the people who constantly belittled my career choice and refused my financial help, just called me in a panic, demanding $100,000 as reparations for all the pressure they put on my brother. I literally laughed in their faces. I'm a 28-year-old fashion photographer, and I've been at this for 6 years now. Photography has always been my passion. So instead of going to college, I decided to dive straight into internships. Right after high school, I landed my first one, even if it wasn't with some big shot name. I was just thrilled to be working. Slowly, I started assisting other photographers, absorbing everything I could. The more time I spent on shoots, the more confident I became. By 22, I had my first solo gig, and I haven't looked back since. I've been doing pretty well for myself, consistently pulling in 6 figures every year for the past few years. It's a huge accomplishment, but my family? They're completely oblivious, still thinking I'm good for nothing. As a photographer, I'm literally behind the scenes. We're not as well known as the models, obviously. People in the industry know us, but unless you're incredibly famous, most folks don't bother with our names. I'm not at that level yet, which is probably why every time I go home, my parents make it a point to remind me how much more successful my younger brother is, and how I should get a respectable job instead of wasting my time on photography. My parents were never really happy with me. My brother, 2 years younger, was always the genius of the family. He was a straight-A student, while I was more into singing, theater, and sports. Academics just weren't my thing, so I was pretty average. The constant comparisons to my brother, who was younger but so much better, and how I needed to live up to his standards were exhausting. I used to fight with them all the time, but eventually I just gave up. There was no point. They were never going to appreciate me. So I started ignoring them. My relationship with them was already strained, but it completely shattered after high school, when I decided not to go to college and pursue fashion photography. We fought for months. Finally, they laid it out. If I went down this path instead of getting a degree, they'd never forgive me and would have nothing to do with me. But I didn't let them stop me. My priority was my dream. For a few years they were truly upset, not even speaking to me. That was incredibly difficult, especially being so young. I had to rely on other family members for help, mostly financial. My previous part-time summer jobs hadn't given me enough to live on my own in a new city, and as an intern I wasn't making much. Thankfully, my aunt, my dad's older sister, often sent me money to cover my expenses. Her daughter and I have always been super close, so naturally, my aunt had a soft spot for me. Even with her help, I still felt lonely sometimes without my parents' support. They and my brother pretty much acted like I didn't even exist after I left home. My aunt never told my dad she was helping me because it would have caused massive arguments, with him accusing her of encouraging me to make wrong choices. But she'd keep me updated on their feelings. Most of the time, their reactions were negative, and they'd quickly change the subject, which was really disheartening to hear. Then one year, out of nowhere, they insisted I come home for the holidays to reconnect. I went, hoping for an emotional reunion, but they were surprisingly normal about it. Later, my mom told me they'd reached out because it was clear I wasn't going to change my mind, and they didn't want to be seen as parents who didn't support their kids' dreams. It would look bad. That's when it hit me. They only wanted to preserve their reputation, not truly accept my decision. I was crushed, but I decided to stay in touch, hoping I could eventually get them to change their minds. I've kept them in the loop about all my achievements over the past couple of years, but it never felt like they were as proud of me as they were of my brother. He graduated with a business degree and started working with a friend of my dad's. He makes good money, and my parents constantly brag about him supporting them financially as soon as he started earning. It's not like I hadn't offered to help, but they refused my money because of my unconventional career. They claimed they wouldn't feel comfortable taking money from me, worried I wouldn't be able to live comfortably myself. I knew that wasn't genuine concern. It was just another way to remind me they'd rather rely on my brother, because they didn't think I was doing well enough. No matter what I did, I was never going to be good enough for them. Even when I insisted I'd be fine and could support them, they refused to believe me. And here's the kicker. They actually needed the help. After the pandemic, their cafe struggled. They lost a ton of money and had to shut down about 2 years ago, retiring early. That's when my brother started supporting them, and they outright refused my help. It was utterly insulting. After that, I stopped insisting on staying in touch. We'd only meet at family events, and I'd be civil, but that was it. I stopped going home for holidays because I knew they'd just use it as an opportunity to berate and make fun of me. I didn't need that negativity in my life anymore. I was just done. Our relationship has gotten significantly worse since then. We barely speak. Very few family members know how I truly feel about all this because I don't like talking about it. One of them happens to be my cousin, who recently got engaged. A few days ago, she hosted an engagement party. My family was invited and so was I, but I had the flu. In my absence, my cousin had a conversation with my parents that made them call me up for the first time in years. Before I tell you about that phone call, let me tell you what my cousin told me. Right after getting off the phone with my parents, I immediately called her. She said that at the engagement party, my parents were bragging about my brother getting a huge promotion and making almost double his previous salary. I don't know if that's true or if they were exaggerating, but my cousin said it was getting on her nerves. Not only were they making the whole party about themselves, but they were completely ignoring the fact they had another kid who was doing just as well, if not better. She knew that no matter how much I pretended my relationship with my parents didn't affect me, it obviously did. I wanted to make them proud, and even with all my achievements, it felt like I was never enough. It was incredibly upsetting. So, my cousin decided to put them in their place. While they were bragging about my brother, she brought up how great it was that they now had 2 kids making 6 figures a year. My parents were absolutely shocked. In the past few years, they hadn't bothered to keep in touch, and I had never told them how much money I made. I didn't think it was necessary. After dropping that bombshell, my cousin said nothing more. The very next day my parents called me. I was surprised, to say the least. When they asked if I actually made 6 figures and had been for years, I decided to tell them the truth. I thought, stupidly and delusionally, that they were finally calling to congratulate me and tell me how proud they were. Boy, was I wrong. As soon as I confirmed it, they told me they couldn't believe they'd been pressuring my brother to help them financially when I had been doing so well myself. They had the audacity to get upset with me, saying I should have told them how much money I was making so they could have made an informed choice about which kid should be helping them out financially. I was speechless. That was the last reaction I expected, though in hindsight it's exactly what I should have expected. And if you're not shocked by their audacity yet, let me tell you what happened next. When I didn't say anything, my parents started going on about how much pressure they'd put on my brother, and how he hadn't been able to save enough for himself and his future because he'd been busy supporting them. They claimed this wasn't the case with me, and now they wanted me to pay them $100,000 as reparations. They said since I was their child too, I needed to share my brother's responsibility. They made it sound like I had never offered to help, like I had been evading responsibility this whole time, when in reality, they were the ones who had said no in the beginning. I thought about the situation for a second, and then I literally burst out laughing before hanging up. I couldn't think of any other reaction. It was just so ridiculous that they actually expected me to agree to their terms. After that, I spoke to my cousin to get the full truth, and since then I've been actively avoiding them. I blocked them after the call, but they started texting me from a burner phone and I blocked that too. All their messages are the same. It wasn't cool of me to hide my earnings, and if they'd known, they never would have asked my brother for help. They would have accepted mine instead. Even my brother, who usually stays out of these things, recently texted me. He said he didn't want to take sides, but our parents had a point. He admitted they treated me unfairly and should have been more supportive, but he also thought that if I really wanted them to accept my help when I first offered, I should have specified exactly how much I made instead of letting them wonder. He said it's true that this isn't a career they know much about, so they couldn't have known I was doing so well. The other thing he said was that while he'd been supporting them alone, it was also my responsibility, because like it or not, they were my parents and they'd raised me, so I owed it to them. Now I'm a bit confused because of what he said. I obviously don't feel bad for my parents at all, but I do feel bad for my brother. We haven't had a great relationship, but he hasn't been as bad as our parents, and I hate to think about it, but he might have a point. Am I the jerk for not telling my parents exactly how much I make? Edit. So there's been some curiosity about why I never specified my income to my parents, either when offering to help or just to let them know how well I was doing. The reason is pretty simple. First, I really don't like talking about how much money I make. If I tell someone I make enough to help them, especially if it's my parents, I want them to trust me. Why would I lie about having enough money to help them financially? And I know a lot of people measure success by money, but I don't. I'm just as successful now as I was when I first started out because back then I was successful in going after my dreams against all odds. Even now I'm doing well at a job I love. So for me, being rich and being successful aren't interchangeable. I wanted my parents to be proud of me because I was successful and happy with what I was doing, not just because I was rich. I don't know how to explain it well, but it just didn't occur to me that I'd need to specify my exact income to win them over. I guess I've always been a bit delusional about them, thinking they'd eventually treat me like they treated my brother. But that never happened, and that's why we're here. Anyway, that's why I never told them about my exact income. I did talk about it with my cousin before all this, and she told me I shouldn't have had to tell my parents how much money I make for them to treat me like their child, and that I didn't do anything wrong. That was a huge relief, knowing at least someone is on my side. I also know my aunt agrees with my cousin, but the fact that my brother, who was neutral, is suddenly against me is really bugging me. I still haven't decided if I should feel bad, so I'm open to any advice. Update 1. Hi everyone, thank you for all the comments. Going through them was a real eye-opener. I guess I really needed that because I had actually started to think maybe I was in the wrong here, but I don't think I am anymore. I blocked my brother too. I realized that even though he had been neutral, that hadn't helped me at all. My cousin had, my aunt had. And truthfully, the only reason he's standing with my parents now is because they've never given him a reason to stand against them. I, on the other hand, have several. Before I blocked him, I replied and told him I appreciated him going out of his way to defend our parents, but he didn't grow up in the same home. The parents he knows are very different from the parents I know, and he'll never realize what I've been through. So it's incredibly unfair of him to say that whether I like it or not, our parents raised me and I owe it to them to help them now. I absolutely do not owe it to them. Whatever they did for me before I turned 18 was required by law. They weren't doing me some huge favor by taking care of me. As soon as I was no longer a minor, I left home to fulfill my dreams, and after that they didn't even speak to me for years, let alone support me. At that time it was just my aunt who was there for me. Even my brother wasn't there for me. It was my cousin who supported me emotionally throughout. So I can hardly even call them my family because at any stage of my life, they have never truly been there for me. If I owed anything to anyone, it would be my aunt. As for him supporting our parents on his own for the past couple of years, that's really not my fault because it's not like I hadn't offered. But they had snubbed me, and I remembered it because that's what made me cut them out of my life. And so far I'm happy they didn't seem any worse off for it either. But all of a sudden, now that they know how much I make, they want me to make it up to them, even though they haven't even apologized to me. That's really unfair and entitled of them, and I don't feel the need to put up with it. After sending that message, I didn't want to speak to them anymore, so I blocked him. Since then, I haven't received any messages from them personally, but my aunt has. My aunt contacted me and told me that because I mentioned her support in that message, my brother probably passed that message on to my father. That's how he found out my aunt had been supporting me in the beginning. And just as we expected, he lost his mind over it. He's been accusing my aunt of leading me astray. He believes that if my aunt had never supported me and told me to go back to my parents and live by their rules, I never would have gone so far away from them in the first place, and our relationship would be much better.